Welcome, everyone. I have a special guest with me today, and I'm so excited to bring her into the chat. I'm going to wait until she shows up, and I'm going to be talking about Rahu and Ketu for the next hour with a special guest, Tulsi. And as soon as she joins live, I will bring her in and we'll get started. I'm really excited to share with you today this upcoming transit. We have actually 4 major transits happening in April. And April is a big month. So let's get ready for the big shifts. And Tulsi and I are going to be sharing with you some ways to prepare, to get excited, but also to make sure you have everything in place that you need in order to make this a very successful transit ahead. And so just a reminder that Jupiter is moving, Rahu and Ketu are moving, and also Saturn is moving, and all of this happens in April. And this is more change than we've had in a while, and certainly more major change than we've had in a long time. This is a very unusual transit to have multiple major transits happening all at once. Very unusual. And it's also very exciting. So your life is about to change. You're probably feeling some of these changes already. And type into the chat. Share with me some of what you're noticing already as we embark on these shifts. Usually with a major transit like Jupiter or Saturn or even Rahu and Ketu, we will feel these changes and shifts well in advance, a month, even 2 months. I know personally I've been feeling, noticing, and having insights, reminders of these shifts happening. So it's here, it's coming. We are using mean node transits for Rahu and Ketu. There are different, here's Tulsi. There are different ways to calculate the transits, but this is, just so you know, true node. And I'm going to try to get her. There she is. Okay. Tulsi, are you with us? Just checking. I hope we don't have technical details with Mercury being debilitated. Hi, Tulsi. So glad you're here. This is so exciting. We have been trying to do this for months and months and months, and it's finally happening. I don't know if others are aware of this, but Tulsi and I are actually really old friends. We went to school together. We talked Jyotish way back when. We used to geek out on Jyotish just for fun. And here we are still sharing gifts and wisdom. Tulsi is a very accomplished Jyotishi and actually comes from a Jyotish lineage. Your father is a Jyotishi, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah. You've been studying for many years. And if you're not familiar with Tulsi's work, I encourage you to check her out. You have such a beautiful way of describing the transits and the moon cycles. And it's very artful, very unique, and very you. So I'm glad to see you sharing your gifts and wisdom. It's so needed. And I wonder if there's anything that you want to share right off the bat about what you're up to and what you're noticing with these transits already.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just such an honor. I do have to share quickly. As I was getting ready, I was remembering almost 20 years ago, us gathering in saris and honoring the moon, and like, of course, we're still up to the same thing, you know. So
we're still.
Thank you for being you and for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure, Tulsi. You're such a treasure, and I honor those memories so fondly. We used to have a lot of fun doing our Jyotish stuff. back in the day. And of course, it's good to see that we're still sharing our dharmic wisdom, gifts,
Mm.
and truth. And you have a special way of seeing things. So tell us what you're noticing. Of course, we have four major transits happening back to back. And as I was saying before you joined, we are talking about mean nodes and not the true nodes. Some have already acknowledged, according to true nodes, that the Rahu Ketu transit has happened. But we're talking about the mean nodes, which it's a different calculation. It's happening in April. And so even though we may be feeling the nuance shift already, it hasn't actually happened yet. So what are you noticing and what are you seeing? What are you feeling already?
Mm. Well, I just want to offer a little prayer to honor this Jyotish Vidya, the light, the lineage. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswate Namaha. Just honoring this light that's been passed down, that is very scientific, very, I don't want to say fixed, but very calculated, right? You can observe it, yet it's so alive and living. So I love that question, what am I feeling? What am I noticing? And to bring us back collectively to the idea that it is an observational science, to go out and look up at the stars and the constellations, to sit and reflect, not in front of a computer, yet what is happening with the stars, and noticing how that dance is moving us and calling us to step forward, to step back. And I think for me, that's very much the play of the nodes, right? Sometimes we get caught in this idea of celebrating triumph or shedding a tear for a loss, and kind of putting these shadow planets, right, in that krudha, right, the cruel planets. And as much as they might feel cruel, we don't know what is moving us towards liberation or away from it, right? The main thing that we might be investing all our time in, the idea of liberation, may be distracting us. And so what I'm noticing is, well, that knowledge, as you know, this verbiage, knowledge is different in different states of consciousness. So it's such an individual journey. We can only receive that information through our own vessel and our own lens. And so that sharpening of the lens, and over time calculating and putting to use that information, is such a beautiful thing to distill and digest. And so, as you're saying, it's not overnight. They don't move and then it's like, okay, Libra, Aries, right? And so for me, I've been tracking, maybe more focused for probably since we became friends. Around that time is when I the tracking of things started to come on. And it's what are the lunar nodes? And forgive me for kind of taking two steps back. It's, it's Rahu's reaching towards that which it can't have, right? And it's consuming all without considering what comes next, right? Whereas Ketu is considering all the effects. And so this play of moving from Taurus to Scorpio is such a huge impact, because I know all the Jyotishis were talking even a year ago or a year and a half ago, around March and April, things are going to start to open up, right? But it's not just this idea, oh, look, that's happening, but what are we feeling? And so that interpersonal shift of Aries to Libra, that play of so many reflecting and asking these big questions. What am I shaking hands on and agreeing to? Where am I investing my energy, and where do I need to pull back just a little bit? It's that dance of self and the other. And what's needed right now is that self-sovereignty.
Oh, yes.
Right? That unapologetic, yet with grace. Right? So it's having that courage to stay in your heart and yet being brave to walk with your authenticity, right? Especially
Yeah.
with the other major transits happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just going to keep talking. So I'm like, maybe I'll pause.
Maybe you, I feel like I talk so much, and it's nice to listen sometimes and not always be talking. But I think you bring up some really good points. First of all, just honoring that the transits and the wisdom of the cosmos, this is an embodied awareness. This is a journey. Tracking the planets is really tracking the body wisdom. And I love this reminder. Of course, this is something we grew up knowing and being taught, but that different states of consciousness are really important to consider when we're talking about not only Vedic knowledge, but when we're talking about nature, natural law, the understanding of this life, this existence that we're experiencing, this path of Dharma, even that each one of us are on a dharmic path. And we may not be conscious of it, but it's happening. And so it's through the states of consciousness, our own embodied awareness, that we are able to experience this life. And all the transits are reminding us and supporting us with is strengthening, in my understanding anyway, is that the transits are designed to awaken us further and to keep deepening our inner growth, support this strengthening consciousness. And of course, and I know you probably are aware of this already, and we could talk endlessly about this, but when I look at a Jyotish chart, I'm looking at a body and the body wisdom. How does the body express itself? And what's supporting the awakening, and where are the challenges or the resistance to receiving pure knowledge, really, which is nature's wisdom and knowledge. So what I find interesting about what you're saying here is this sovereignty, this sense of self, this new awareness that is emerging. That's what I'm noticing with the Aries Libra axis. This is all about self and other. And the ego identity shift that is happening for the planet right now. Each one of us is in a powerful awakening process. And this is very controversial, Tulsi, but I'm going to say it. I said it to clients this week. I love this pandemic. No, but I do, because what I'm seeing, not only with myself, my clients, my community, the world at large, is that there is such an opening to our own medicine. Not everyone, but so many of us are awakening to our own medicine, not their medicine, not the outer authorities' medicine, but our own inner medicine. And I think that's what you're talking about with this axis. And the potential here is incredible, especially with the Jupiter in Pisces dynamic. So I'm very excited personally. I'm hopeful. I'm positive. What do you think?
I really want to echo that word awakening. Right?
Yeah.
These lunar nodes are the great awakeners, and they're moving us. I mean, what is this play of this world, right? It's not here to be denied, yet to have the right tools to utilize that, moving towards the novelty of what's calling us forward. And so we can get caught in Rahu, right? The Rahu's the head of everything. It has all the senses contained in it. And those of you who are new to these nodes, you know, the North Node is actually not a planet, it's a position, right? These are positions where the moon crosses the ecliptic. Is it the moon and the sun? I feel like I'm always saying this story incorrectly.
So mathematical points on either side of the moon that cast a shadow on literally our intellect. Now, I have a different expression of the moon. I know traditionally it's used as the intellect and even, but I actually honor the emotional body as our intellect. So that to me, intellect is, it's like, what's our relationship with our own emotional body? So that's how I see the shadow on our intellect.
Yes, I'm on that same page, because what is motivating us forward, or that which is making us take 2 steps back and resisting that which we don't prefer, is very intimate to the emotional nature, to the embodiment of beyond all of this, right? It's not something we premeditate on. And and so we can get caught in the thought leads to action, action leads to achievement through the senses, right? I taste sweet and then I want more, right? I taste that dance with the other and I get consumed by that experience. Yet the gunas, the 3 elements that are playing themselves out in the dance of this whole creation, is here to be witnessed. We're here to be fully engaged, yet have the line be experienced less of a line in marble and more of a line in air. And so learning that there's the self, the other, there's the rules, the regulations, the stories, the dream. We're all dreamers. And it's so easy to get enrolled in someone else's rules, regulations, agreements, and dreams. And now these great awakeners are motivating us. They're pushing us. And I feel some people feeling like the rug is getting pulled out from under them, but yet they're landing. And they're starting to notice that landing, and they're starting to ask questions. How can I contribute more fully? I'm going to have to really look inside. And like you said, that Jupiter in Pisces is contacting not only our own inner creative intelligence, but that of divinity, of the divine, whether we believe in it or not. We all know if we walk out in nature with our bare feet on the earth, we're going to feel connected to something greater than us. And so to really drop in that anchoring of what is motivating us, right? Because Aries is, okay, guys, let's step into that self-sovereignty, but what is the motivation? The motivation can be health and awareness and fitness, to fit in, to be seen, to control others. Yet it can be that cultivation of this body vessel as an instrument to attune ourselves with divinity and step forward to serve the other, right? That's Saturn moving into Aquarius, right? Putting that discerning eye of how we connect in community and with the other, right? That greater servitude towards humanity.
100%. Yeah. And with, of course, we have to add the Jupiter element, which gives a soft landing, a softer landing, and support to the types of knowledge, the types of wisdom, the types of awareness that are possible. And of course, we're talking in very generalized terms here. And of course, one has to take into consideration their own innate nature and their own innate relationship to nature through their own birth chart. But these are generalized themes that I think are applicable to the collective. And so whenever I'm looking at the transits, or I'm not a predictive astrologer, I'm very clear on that, but it's important to recognize the 3 levels of influence that are upon each one of us. Even us sovereign beings, there's collective karma and there's a collective energy at play here, and we're all influenced by that. There's also our individual karma and our path of evolution individually, and then we have the ancestral body that is supporting us in these shifts and these changes. So I think with that in mind, the support from Jupiter is going to provide a little more nutrient, a little more nutritional value, perhaps, to some of the changes that are taking place. I'm curious, when you work with Aries, and I'll be really honest, Aries is not, as a Scorpio, a double Scorpio, Scorpio ascendant and moon. Um, of course, we have the Mars connection, but Aries has always been a very challenging sign for me.
Mm.
Um, it's a little rough around the edges, I'll be really honest. So even though I love the directness and the ability to go right in, take charge, get the job done, there are some parts to Aries that are challenging to me, I'll just say. So I'm curious your experience with Aries. We'll get to Libra, but this is what Rahu's pulling us towards, this energy of kind of taking things head on and conflict and not necessarily seeing the bigger picture, because it's very one pointed and very direct, which has its benefits. But there is a shadow side to this dynamic. What are your thoughts on this? And there's a lot of healing, of course, that can come through Ashvini, even Bharani.
Mm.
Kritika has its strengths as well. But in my experience, Aries can be a little bit conflict prone and not necessarily nurturing and big picture focus. I'll just leave it there. Tell me your thoughts.
Oh, I love these questions. And wow, I just the moving into not big picture, to take a step back. These lunar nodes are not here to be pulling us towards one and away from the other, yet finding that balance, which we'll talk about with Libra. And it's finding that, that north node in the individual chart. I don't consider myself a predictive astrologer, because I feel like we're here just to anchor into ourselves and live from our heart. And how can we dance at the beat of our own drum to contribute? Yes, it's
Yeah,
beautiful to know what's happening in the world, yet how can we be grounded in the self and contribute? So I think you and I are so much, and we've never even
yeah,
had this conversation, but I
we
knew,
have.
I was like,
But
we're so on this same page here.
yeah,
And so that north node, we can say, is that immature point, right? Which is interesting, being in Aries, that originator, that spark, right? That, for lack of a better word, we can say immature, and yet I'm here to learn. I'm here. And
yeah,
what is immaturity? As much as that bright eyed, I want to be involved, let's go forward, yet perhaps not considering the motivation, perhaps not considering at what cost, and that bigger picture alignment with the other, right? And so it's that dance, it's not getting lost in the other, right? Nor
yeah,
protecting that self autonomy. And so that north node being in Kritika, I mean, it's talk about hitting the nail on the head with, we've already perhaps seen a public display of not being able to ground in one's overwhelming emotional reaction of, this doesn't feel good, I need to correct it, right? And that impulsivity of anger, because the south node is that peacekeeper in Libra. And so when you are so contained as the peacekeeper without speaking those words, but with grace, right? It's that balance of courage and grace, right? Having the courage to step forward into perhaps even the unknown with grace, and falling. And almost as you said, there's even a quote, it's to find out that the unknown all of a sudden is a feather bed with a soft landing, because
mm,
things are shifting, and I am hopeful for that. So the moving forward with that directness, yes, wherever that north node is falling in the chart, can activate being critical, can activate a sense of anger. But what's really spurring anger? But the inexpression of that which we're we haven't laid down boundaries or expressed what's not working for us.
Yes.
Right?
So good.
Well, and
So good.
I'm going to just reveal it.
That is the gift of Aries. And I do, but to be in right relationship with Aries, one must be willing to do that deep dive, that deep exploration into needs, emotions, feelings. Why am I angry?
Yeah.
Why is my body experiencing this no? Where is that boundary? And of course, that's the sense of sovereignty that we're talking about, is how to really land in your own experience and use that to inform your right action. And so that brings us to the Libra piece, because that, and you know, this is what's so beautiful about the nodes, is this dance, this Leela, really between opposition, you know, the attraction repulsion dynamic. I want it, but I'm afraid of it at the same time, or the direction I'm moving. And there's a gift here that's actually trying to support me in this moving towards. And that's the gift of Ketu. Ketu in Libra is mirroring some big shifts around self and other. I would also say marketplace, you know, from a Jyotish perspective, Libra is much more about business and marketing and being in the marketplace than I think Western astrology uses more of like legal scales and balance, which from a Jyotish perspective, it's more about going to the market and literally weighing spices and fabrics and the beauty and the texture and the pleasure that comes from the pelvis, the seventh house. So say more about Ketu moving into Libra and the magic that is possible here. Or the challenges, because it's
Oh, the South Node in Libra. It's so beautiful. Just even when you start to excavate into the constellations or the nakshatras behind the curtain, moving us into that awareness of what we're agreeing upon and where we're putting our attention, and the cultivation of our creativity, right? As much as Libra is about business, right? So often I see a Libra moon and look behind the veil, and they might be this creative, artistic person, and they're so sharp at making the deal, at knowing the needs of the people, right? That other end of Aries is knowing the needs of the people and wanting to happen quickly, right? Let's get this done. Whereas Libra says, let's not complete this deal till there's a sense of balance. And often we're thinking of Libra as balance, yet just as you displayed with the scales, it's actually where balance is being requested of us. And of course, I have a helicopter going over, which some people we call, you know, this is so, you know, faux pas maybe, but, you know, Uranus. And where is Uranus in the sky, yet about to merge or having already merged, depending where we're looking, with the North Node. Am I right on that? Or is it, yeah.
Do you use the outer planets? I'm curious about that. Are you in Neo Jyotish?
No, I pull them up because of moments like this. I believe in nimitta. I believe in the idea of the living science. And so sometimes, rarely, you know, the Pluto or something might just pop out and say, this is what needs to be talked about. You know, so that's very rare. But it's just, you know, I don't know how else to label a helicopter amongst the other planets. So that's one of my teachers would always talk about Uranus, you know, the big metal bird in the sky. So maybe you have something to help contribute to my understanding here. Yeah.
You know, as a Scorpio, you can probably guess that I'm more an omenology type of Jyotishi. So I look for, you know, what's crossing the path, or an ambulance going by. And so when I think helicopter, you know, there's one main propeller and it's moving through air. And of course, Libra has Swati Nakshatra. There's quite a bit of Vayu and wind
Mm-hmm.
in this constellation. So more than anything, I look at these things as an emphasis for some reason. So there was
Mm-hmm.
an emphasis on what you were saying, and now I can't even
Well,
remember
no,
what
I can remember, and you just added to it, and I'm going to take it right back to what you said and back
Okay.
to what I said. And what is Swati but this young shoot, this young sprout? And so when I was talking about balance, right, it's where balance is
Yeah.
needed, and Swati can be so going with the flow and blowing with the wind that it needs to anchor down. And so
True.
being
That's very
open yet rooted, right? So finding that balance of your own creative flow and creative intelligence moving through with direction, with an outlet. And so, in the world, and again, I'm not an expert in these global transits yet, what we're doing here is helping each other. I can't even say helping the other. It's like we're helping each other activate our own inner creative intelligence of what is that sound? What is that reiterating in this moment? And the reiteration is there's such a dance on the outside pulling us, motivating us. And so questioning it, right? Is this where I add a boundary? Is this where I take away the boundary? Perhaps there already is a balance and we agree to move forward clearly. Oh, this is a beautiful exchange. Perhaps we check back in a few months, right? There's this beautiful questioning instead of, okay, we're going to have this relationship, this talk, and then go. I think it's so beautiful to be in the flow, yet it's so easy to be in autopilot, right? Oh, we're in relationship. And so reflecting on these contracts we're making, little and big, and
Mm.
reflecting back into the motivation, is this the highest and best for myself and everyone involved, right? It's that
Yeah.
constant 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so I think as they're shifting, we're feeling the waves, the energetic waves. And like you said, I'm also very excited about this and knowing April's the time to ground down, right? It's
Mm.
not to be moved into that impulsivity of that energy of there's a deadline. I felt it yesterday. So we're going to start to feel this creativity flowing through us, this energy, this motivation. Yet if you're feeling the need to rush, especially in April, it's to rush like a royal elephant, right? One step at a time, keeping yourself grounded and firm in self, yet eyes wide open to that bigger picture of the unfolding.
Hmm. It's a good reminder. And I would say, even for me, thank you, because one of the things that feels really urgent for me personally and for our planet is, and it's my mission, of course, but to root into Dharma and the purpose of the soul. And these veils of illusion are upcoming. These veils of illusion can start helping us see more clearly and feel more clearly what is my purpose beyond this illusion of a 9 to 5 and being hooked into the system that isn't really about the nourishment of your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these are some of the veils that are going to be stripped away for many people in the coming cycles, and that Jupiter will support that inner knowing of what feels good. What feels good to the body also feels good to the soul. And that's what's needed right now. And of course, as you're reminding us, the Saturn in Aquarius element is all about the greater good. Being entrepreneurial, being innovative, all of those wonderful, quirky, creative, expressive qualities that Aquarius has. But at the same time, the greater good. Thinking about, wait a second, it's not just about me. It's about all of us. what serves, and of course, what serves the soul actually serves the greater good. There's no doubt about it. So this balance piece is essential. The sense of self, the self versus other or with other, creating a dynamic of balance and integration that we need the other to support us in this mirror. We need the other in order to know the self. And it's interesting being in a relationship right now and really learning that firsthand. I always knew that the other was supporting the evolution, but until you're actually in a loving relationship, that mirror doesn't actually make sense. So I think that some people are really going to discover in this time the power of being in relationship and being in nourishing relationship actually supports a whole nother level of evolution, growth, expansion, nourishment of the soul than relationships that are painful and designed to be painful. Like, you need the pain to wake the fuck up. And I don't know that, I think that's something that's changing now. And maybe these transits are going to support this. And I'm just tracking people in my field and clients and my own experience. But there's something changing with people in my circles. And that is, maybe I can learn from gentle and nourishing and kind rather than always having to learn from harsh, aggressive, painful. Are you noticing any of that? Or maybe you've been there already. I don't know, but
Absolutely.
It's been a long journey, Tulsi.
I've been noticing so many people putting the weapons down.
Yeah.
Saying, wow, I don't have to work this hard. And yet, sometimes I'll say it can be effortless. Effortless doesn't mean that there isn't lessons, that we're not showing up and speaking the hard truths, right? Taking the red pill, right? Yet there can be an element of softness and ease and grace in the maturity of let's be in right relationship with self and then the other, right? The Ramayana, a great epic from India, is all about sambandha, relationship. It shows that ideal relationship with self and nature and other. And at times we can judge that, oh, I have this self node in the 7th house or 5th house. I'm going to be denied of relationship, of child, or I feel some disappointment around that. Yet sometimes we can take another spin, another direction, looking that yet as much as it's minimizing, it's still offering us the fruit of our karmas. That's what the planets are doing. Through the 3 gunas, we're being seized by the planets whose only motivation is for our evolution. And so we can't judge that even receiving of something, an expansion of something, may be actually the taking away of something, and vice versa, right? Maybe the child that we think is going to be denied of us is actually the taking away of a karma and receiving that child. Yet it's almost as if, for lack of a better word, a burden in the karmic debt that we're here to exhaust. And since it's, I'm not revealing too much, I just am about to step into my nodal return. So I actually have at 29 degrees this nodal return. And so for me, I have been learning that anchoring into the self, yet being open, right? Because it's not getting lost in nor the denial of, which you were speaking to so eloquently, and not only my noticing others softening with that dance, yet internally inside of myself opening to, okay, I'm here to shine as that embodied self, sovereign woman who is walking her highest path and loving every moment of it. And not from a place of need, but from a cup that runneth over.
Mm.
How can I nurture and support, yet also receive? I think this culture is so in the unfamiliarity of receiving. It is actually difficult to receive, whether it's sitting down to meditate for a sound bath, a massage, or a gift or a compliment. And so noticing that resistance, right? They do say where we resist somehow is often our greatest medicine. And so many people who might have been resisting one thing or the other, and I've actually been noticing a lot of Libra clients who are welcoming in, maybe I'm interested in a commitment because that container helps me to be able to grow not only on a horizontal level, but a vertical level in that container, whatever that looks like. We're all individuals, but a commitment container of some kind, saying, okay, let's drop in together.
And really, that's a commitment with self in a new way. And that's what I find so beautiful. And I'm actually referring to a Libra as well, who has made this inner shift within the last few weeks and made a declaration for a gentle receiving now. And that's a gentle receiving self ultimately, because all the partner is doing is mirroring yourself to you level. And I love this, you know, as an Anuradha ascendant and moon, gentleness and nourishment are my thing. That is my orientation. So I am all in when someone's ready to receive nourishment and gentleness, kindness in a way that feels good. That's what I want. That, you know, that's my personal prakriti. But that's my desire for this world is gentle nourishment, receiving. And why so much harsh aggression? So with this nodal return for you, you're actually an expert in this transit. So you have had lifelong experience of this axis. And I am so intrigued by that. What have you learned thus far on your journey with this dynamic?
Well, and to double stack my Rahu Dasha period and my subdasha even activating the Libra, not to get too
Venus?
I'm in Rahu Venus.
Power. Wow. Yes.
So, you know, and also noticing when to, you know, to note it.
Venus. I won't reveal. I always remember certain parts of people's charts, and that stays with me. And if I recall, you have a very strong Venus. And of course, your face is very, you know, beautiful Venus face. So for those who, I won't say anything else, but you can tell Tulsi has a very strong Venus.
Well, and what I'm learning too is it's all of the balance, because one element overpowered or underpowered, right? You know, for me, I'm so attracted to those with debilitated planets, you know, the Ucha Nicha balance, exalted, debilitated. And I even have a Nicha planet that I feel like is almost my saving grace, right? It's
I love
the interesting this is what I need to earn versus I've arrived. Right? And that cultivation of I created this. Right? Like a garden or a child versus going to the store and picking it up, which is beautiful and fine. There's the relationship with the food. When you've tended to it, you grow it, you nurture it, you eat it, you digest it, and then it's the fruit. Right? So so balancing that strong that strong creative energy and grounding it. I think grounding has been one of my number one elements, you know, especially when we're talking about Pisces. And so, wow, you know, I think there's no end to learning. For me, the biggest thing, and I know it can almost be cliche, at least in our world, from a place of not trying to be modest, But the more I learn, the more I truly know I know nothing at all, right? And especially when I sit before the other and look at their celestial architecture from a perspective as they're an embodiment of divinity. There's no good and bad. It's how can I bow to that divinity that's glimpsed in that celestial architecture that created a moment, a spark that has the potential to live 120 years impacting all of creation, right? That pebble that's dropped in the ocean and the ripples aren't just felt there, they go to the end. And so for me, the biggest relationship that I've been dancing with recently has been with an animal, right? I got this puppy a year ago, and it's interesting how to say, what have I been learning? And I go to talking about a puppy. But yet, when we meet people on the momentary interaction, which we could say the rising sign, right? Interacting with those we may not even know, and then moving to that deeper, the moon, right? To that depth of body wisdom and intelligence, and kind of unpacking what's in our closet, right? And talk about Ketu being that which is emptying our closet.
Mm-hmm.
So having this puppy who I'm such a nurturer, a lover, like you, a grounding and moving in, and with the North Node in Aries, it's watching where we all have that trigger point and watching how we respond or we react. And so in a year of having an animal, I'm noticing my need to keep the peace and to nurture, yet when the boat is rocked, that internal awareness of wanting to control, wanting to be critical and bring about perfection. Really, it's that need to control, to move into perfection. And it's, my puppy doesn't like this food, yet I made it for her and I want her to eat it. And it's not even moving into action, but watching the mind saying, oh, why are you trying to control this moment, right? And when you can't control the moment, or on the other end, like we were talking about, the boundaries, we grip tighter, versus stepping back and asking the questions, right? Usually when we get frustrated or angry, it's a lack of a boundary. It's showing us, oh, wow, this is something that's meaningful for me. So for me, in relationship, it's about staying curious and about vocalizing, right? We don't need to just be, I feel this way when you do this, that happens to me, yet honoring a dialogue. Because I've noticed when there's that feeling that doesn't keep the peace and I don't express it with grace, then it gets lodged in my body. And if it's all about relationship with self, then it impacts the other, right? So my responsibility for expressing my truth is not even just for myself, but it's for the entity of that greater relationship with other that really has an impact on even more than the two interacting in that relationship. So I think that learning to express one's needs with grace, with that curiosity, with that dialogue of honoring self and honoring other. And so it can move between the two, where I've noticed in the past I've gotten lost in that nurturing and support of the other while compromising self, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, I abandoned myself in the pursuit of this love and nourishment that wasn't even reciprocated, when I thought it was everything.
And what better mirror than an animal to teach you this? And we could talk for hours about our animal relationships. And you have a husky mix, don't you?
Yes. I have a husky too.
I have a husky. I just adopted a husky 4 months ago. And I have a Malamute, and she's sleeping right back there. And so I've had huskies and Malamutes for 20 years, over 20 years. So they are special in their mirroring. And so that's something that I'm finding interesting about what you're saying. We're not just even talking about any dog. We're talking about the special wisdom of a husky wisdom is very different medicine. And it's so true, this relationship learning that, really animals are mirroring our own animal body to us. So what's deeper than the surface level of relationship interaction, dynamic between self and other? The animal body, eighth house, reflects to us those unconscious, hidden, dark places within that we may be resisting or unable to see, just unable to see for whatever reason. So the boundary issues that are coming, that you've clarified that for us. We're going to be working on boundaries for sure. We're working on the dynamic of self and other, the relationship between self and other. I also love this reminder that you've given us about beauty, that Libra quality. It's beauty, creativity. It's the dynamic of love and harmony, and that's balance ultimately. So Ketu will be bringing that to the surface and supporting our awakening around these qualities. At the same time, we have some confrontation that's going to be taking place. And for those of us who have Mars, strong Mars, or Mars is a ruling planet, or maybe you're in a Mars dasha, that confrontation might be stronger. That's something I'm noticing for sure, that there is that quality of impatience.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm always kind of impatient, to be honest. It's the redhead Mars dynamic. I'm just impatient. Like, let's get this show on the road. I didn't come here to waste time, let's get it done. So patience, you've reminded us to be patient, to honor the movement of the elephant, which is slow, steady progress forward. Is there anything else that you want to highlight or add before we close, Tulsi? Because I feel like this could be the never-ending conversation.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we need to do this again soon so that we can just pick up where we left off and keep the ball rolling. But is there anything you want to add, or anything people need to know that you feel is important?
Absolutely. And it's, of course, I started talking about the dog, then I don't know if you noticed, I eloquently switched to that greater dynamic of self and the other. And so tools, right? I think Aries, North Node Aries is a time in the world where we can get embodied in a very graceful way. So yoga, martial arts, right? The movement of the body, because what is the root of emotion but motion? So when we feel anger, it's sometimes best to just have a big glass of water. It's best to move the body. So it's a beautiful time to cultivate these practice of conscious movement, as well as those that which anchor us into our own divinity, right? That higher mind, as well as opening the floodgates of our creativity, because when our creativity is unexpressed, it's the same thing, right? When we hold in that anger, it's disrupting our body, but as well as our love and our creativity. So when you gain wisdom, it's made to be shared. When you have that creative intelligence sparking inside, we're going to find a lot of increase in technology, in that creative architecture. So with that humility and awareness that a diamond isn't forged overnight, right? That chitra, right? That celestial architect, it's forged through the fires of transformation, of consistency, of peeling the layers away. And so be willing to take that journey on, knowing it may take some time, yet that the world needs your creativity, right? The world needs that balance that's cultivated through that sacred movement of that Aries energy, right? It's going to be there, right? We're all under that umbrella together. So how can we utilize it best? What wants to be grown right now and tended to, so we can have that ease and grace in that unfolding of the divine plan.
Beautiful. Yes, and true harmony, true balance between body and self other, the unfolding path. And all is Dharma. All is Dharma. This is the awakening. I'm hopeful. I hear your hope. I hear your inspiration. And I wonder if there's anything that you want to share with our group today, our circle, and those who are watching the recording. Is there anything special you're working on or that you're creating right now?
You know, I feel like my purpose is to be a reflection for the others. So I'm really diving into that interpersonal one-on-one astrological architecture. And there's this little project in my heart of nurturing children and giving them, my purpose is really driven by the idea of if you give someone a fish, they can eat for a day. But if you teach them how to fish, then they can eat for a lifetime. And so I have some projects coming of working with children and elders. And so that's my greatest heart project in the moment, besides really being so passionate about one-on-one. I love just sitting in front of that divine embodiment of an individual's trajectory and helping shine light on that.
So glad to hear that. So if you want to reach out to Tulsi, I imagine you can find her from Instagram. And you have a link for personal sessions there, Tulsi? Is it easy for people to find you?
I think I'm in this yoga warrior competition on Yoga Journal, aiming to create some funds to begin this nonprofit. So Chaya Collective, Chaya is like shadow, CHAYA, collective.com. If you go, I think, my Instagram handle is the same as my website. So you can always feel free to DM me and I'll circle around with you from there.
And it's good to have a trustworthy source for personal sessions. I'm very particular, and I know you're a pure heart and that you have so much embodied wisdom, Tulsi. So I do recommend that you reach out to Tulsi if you're wanting one-on-one private sessions. I don't do private sessions unless you're a Dharma mentorship client. So if you're interested in strengthening your path and your purpose and reaching both spiritual and material goals and success this year, as the transits are supporting you this year, please check in with me. Dharma mentorship doors are closing this Friday for this year, and I only have a few spots still available. I'd love to work with you, and we can discuss more about how Dharma mentorship can support you this year. We have a big year ahead, and I am not going to be shy about letting people know that this is the year to rise and shine, and don't hold back. If you have a dream, if you have a vision, if you have a desire, if your heart, if your soul is yearning for more, listen to that, show up for that, and reach out for the support and the guidance that you need to be successful. I think that's one of the main things that I'm excited about with this Jupiter transit, is that the support is actually here. It's going to show up for you if you ask, if you take those action steps, if you show up and do the work. The success is yours. And all we have to do is show up and ask and receive and make sure we have the right support on our team. So Tulsi is an excellent piece of support for your team. Make sure you check in with her, and you're welcome to check in with me as well for more support with your Dharma and your Dharmic path. Tulsi, this has just been such a treasure. I love that we're reconnecting after all these years through Jyotish and through Vedic knowledge and wisdom. We have to do this again. And I'll look forward to getting updates from you along the way and seeing what you're up to. Is there anything you want to add before we close?
Oh, it's been an absolute honor and joy. And I look forward to doing this again.
Let's do it. We'll plan for maybe in the coming months, and we'll see how everyone's doing at that point. and then we can check in.
Beautiful.
All right, Tulsi, big hug to you. Take good care. Sending you so much love.
So much love to you. Thank you.
Bye.